Thank you. First of all, I want to say I think that Bo and Linda Jimenez deserve a round of applause for hosting this. They've done this before and they're becoming experts at it, so I don't know. I mean, we may be getting locked in here or something. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm not going to talk as long as the cops, okay? So because Eric's got his food ready over there and everybody wants to eat, but. Thank you all for coming to this. This has probably been one of the best neighborhood watch meetings that I've been to in years. A lot of useful information, a lot of interaction amongst all of you that are here. A lot of great questions, and I think that there's in the 35 years that I've lived here, there's been so many advances in technology, and we talked about some of them tonight with cameras and the Ring doorbells and all kinds of other things that is, we all have to look out for each other if we want to make our neighborhood safer. If we don't do that, if we come home at night, we go in our house, we stay in the house, you get out, you go to work in the morning, and you're driving down the street with your blinders on, you're not doing yourself or your neighbors any good. So I know probably many of you here are really tuned into what's going on in your neighborhoods, and I think that's great. And I think more of us need to kind of practice. I've lived in Phillips Ranch. It'll be 35 years in December. We raised our kids here. They went to school here. I've tried to stay as involved in the community as I can during my time here. I served 6 years on the Pomona Planning Commission. Served 9 years on the governing board of Pomona Unified School District back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Had an opportunity to be part of the steering committee for Diamond Ranch High School during its planning stages and during its construction stages back in the mid-1990s before it opened. And I've tried to stay very busy in this community. We very much believe in our community. We've seen a lot of our neighbors, and I know that many of you who I've known for many years have probably experienced the same thing. We've seen a lot of our neighbors who have decided they want to move on to maybe the newest and best neighborhood or the newest and best house, and they kind of bail out. But there's a lot of us who really feel the connection to Phillips Ranch, and we've decided to stay here. And many of you, like me, have taken a very active role in the community, and I think that's what makes our community very strong. I've thought in the past, quite honestly, about possibly running for council, but there was always kind of that one thing that got in the way, and that was employment. Trying to balance going to work and doing what is. A lot of people say it's a part-time job, but it's a lot more than going to 2 city council meetings a month. And so I'm very tuned into that. My background is that I have about 25 years of experience in community development, working for 2 cities. I did my first 9 years at the city of Claremont back in the 1990s, and in 2000 I went to next door to the city of Montclair, where I worked for 15 and a half years, and I retired from there about 1.5 years ago as Director of Community Development. So my involvement in city government I believe has given me kind of a keen knowledge for how the city operates, not just in the department that I worked in, but in all of the departments, whether it be finance, whether it be the connection with law enforcement, with the police department, with administration, with public works. There was the discussion earlier, Jonathan, I think you brought it up about the traffic signal at Village Loop in Santa Clara. I took the effort along with Bo Jimenez to go meet with the public works director and the city engineer to ask, what's the rationale for the signal? And we brought up the same issues that you did, is that right now we have problems. I mean, we've got a 3-way stop there. I mean, on a good day you get people just doing a rolling stop through there. I was on my walk the other morning coming down Village Loop and watched somebody just blow through it. I mean, they didn't even slow down. And you see that every so often. You were asking what the rationale is for the signal, and what I will tell you is the rationale from the city is that installing a traffic signal at at this intersection down here was a mitigation measure connected with the expansion of Highway 71. Now, we know that the expansion for Highway 71 is probably 6 or 7 years away from I-10 to Rio Rancho Road. And so my question to them was, well, you know, we have a project that is probably at least 8 years from completion. Why are we getting this here now in connection with that? And we raised the same issues that you did, is that we already have speeding on Village Loop. If you have you're going to have a signal that is going to be green for the east-west leg. Brian, I think you mentioned 50% of the time. It's going to be more than 50% of the time because that's where the traffic is. And so people are going to be coming down the hill from Ranch Hill School. They hit the bottom. They got a green light. They're going to be hitting 50, 55, maybe more. And it's not doing anything for the safety of those of us who live here and those of us who have to drive here on a regular basis on a street that is posted at 35 miles an hour. So we expressed the concerns to Public Works, and one of the things that we kind of left them with, because the contract has been let for the signal already, which is, by the way, is $250,000. But what I left them with is that what the city really needs to start doing about the traffic through our community, particularly on Village Loop and a few other streets, is start thinking about ways not to facilitate how we get the cut-through traffic to get through here faster, because that's really what we have down there. It's mostly not residents. Start thinking of a way to make it undesirable to use Village Loop Road through a variety of traffic calming measures. And there's a lot of things in the toolbox that Public Works and engineers can use. And it may ultimately end up resulting in a little bit more inconvenience for us. Maybe we got to leave 5 minutes earlier in the morning to get to where we're going. But from my perspective, I'm willing to put up with a little bit of inconvenience if the city can do something there that is going to cut down on the traffic volume. It'll, people who are coming from Chino Hills trying to get to the 57 in the morning and then the reverse direction in the afternoon, if it becomes so inconvenient for people to come through here, maybe they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to stay on the freeway rather than trying to go through the ranch.
Interject. I have a crazy idea. B, the problem is there are no interchanges for these freeways, and that's why they use that cut-through pass. There's nothing at the 71, 60 for 57, 60, so on and so forth. So that's the ultimate root cause. In the information you've received about the completion of the 71 becoming a full-fledged freeway, do they plan to put in something to address the interchange issue? The only
thing that the thing I was hoping to see in the plans for the expansion of 71 was to construct a transition road from the southbound 71 to the westbound 60, and there's room to do that. Now, Caltrans may argue, well, it's going to cost X amount of dollars and everything. If you take the transition road from the southbound 71 to the eastbound 60, which is kind of the flyover, as you're going by the building which houses the San Gabriel Valley Regional Center, which is kind of behind south of Walmart. Okay. If you take a look at where the Caltrans right-of-way is right there, there's room to put a transition road. Now, they'd have to build a bridge over one of the other transition roads, but there's room to do it. But there are no plans to do that, and I think the city dropped the ball there, because they needed to advocate for that so that they're not using the ranch as a cut through to get from the 71 to the 60 or the 71 to the 57. So the start of construction for the 71, like I said, is probably, in best case scenario, is probably 5-6 years away. They're saying maybe 2022, 2023. The time frame got moved up because of the passage of Measure M in LA County last year. So the funding for the 71 project got moved quite a ways up the list, so that it was several years out, even farther before. Whether there's time to ask Caltrans to address that, I don't know. Certainly I'm an advocate for that, along with along with the transition from the westbound 60 to the northbound 57, which would be great. Now there's that huge project going on through Diamond Bar right now. In a lot of it's in conjunction with a lot of the retail space they're going to build up on Grand Avenue. They're going to build an outlet center up there that's like 400,000 square feet plus. And so you've got the new off-ramp going in there and the widening of the freeway. And of course, we all drive that. That's a nightmare through there. Right. But I think that really what they need to think about doing is they really need to think about a transition from westbound to northbound. And like I said, I mean, I would certainly advocate for that because it would benefit this community.
So the short-term crazy idea is to make that a toll road through our neighborhood. All the residents get free.
Have a sticker on your car.
And the money goes to benefit our neighborhood.
Yeah, the problem, that along with, it's not a crazy idea. There are no crazy ideas. That idea, along with the suggestion that comes up every so often, is gate the community. Yeah. Is the fact that all of our streets are, well, with the exception of a couple of the developments in the ranch, they're all public.
Right.
And so the idea of gating the community, it's like once you do that, once you start gating the community or start charging money, you've got issues because the community now they're not really public roads anymore. So the cost for maintaining and doing the work, now that falls on us. And it's not just where we have to worry about the pavement on the street, but it's all the infrastructure.
That's why,
because it becomes private, and it would be an astronomical cost, especially given the age of a lot of the infrastructure now, because we've got the oldest infrastructure in the ranch is 40 years old. And we know that with all the issues that we've been having with the landscape maintenance and that sort of thing, that the city did not plan well to transition from the early maintenance stage when everything was first planted in the ranch and the trees were small and the irrigation was new and everything, to when it got to its mature age, when the irrigation started breaking and trees started dying or dropping limbs and needed to be thinned out or trimmed on a regular basis, and there was never really a provision made for that. They didn't really think ahead, besides the fact that our landscape assessment hasn't been raised in 25 years. So they're sorely short on the amount of money that they're getting. There's the whole different argument, or the whole different conversation, is with respect to how well the city has been managing the landscape contract, which admittedly, those of you who attended the meeting at Decker School last week, the public works director admitted, she said, we've been negligent in managing the contract. And I think those of us who are kind of tuned into that, and that was pretty big of you to admit that. So the hope is now is that with the new landscape contractor that started in mid-August, that they will hopefully start to try to bring some of the issues of landscaping under control. They're never going to get it back to how it was back in the early days without the assessment being raised. And so that is probably an issue that this community is going to have to discuss and really think about, probably in the near future. But for the time being, at least for me, it's my hope that this new landscape company is A, more responsible than Landscape West, which is the one that got terminated, and B, that the city knows now that we're watching them very closely, and that we're kind of locked into what's being done and what's not being done out there. I know personally, I am a pain in the Parks and Landscape Manager's rear end, because when I go out and walk 3 or 4 mornings during the week, rarely a day goes by that I'm not texting him or sending him an email for something that I found out there. There's a busted sprinkler here. I take a picture of it. There's something else. This area looks dry. Have him come and check the irrigation.
Can you send us his number?
I will be happy to give you his email address. And he'll hate me for that. But you know what? It's okay, because they have both Parks and Landscape Manager and the Public Works Director when I have told them, hey, I apologize, I said, sorry, I'm just on your case all the time. They said, no, we want you to let us know. Because you're out there, and I gotta tell you, since I started going out, since I retired, and I actually get out and I walk 3 or 4 mornings a week, things look a lot different at pedestrian level than when we're driving through in our cars. Yeah, and it just, you would be surprised at what you see when you're on your 2 feet rather than in your 4 wheels. And so she was very appreciative of that. She goes, no. She goes, you see things, let us know, so that we can get them taken care of. So no, I'm happy to share that with you.
Can we keep the budget for the traffic signal and just move it a little bit? Because the problem is, we really don't need one there at the 3-way stop, but we need it where pedestrians try and cross Phillips Ranch or Village Loop to get to the Greenbelt on the other side. Cars are screaming down there.
Yeah.
People don't stop when you're in the crosswalk.
If you've watched some of the back and forth on Nextdoor, you know that's an issue that's been brought up many times. There was one morning I was out walking, and I just decided, just for things and giggles, that when I got to that corner and I thought, I'm going to cross over to the Greenbelt side. So I stood there. I didn't step out into the street, but I was standing at the accessible ramp, and making my intentions known. That, even though I had my trash picker in my bag, I was a homeless guy, But anyway, I made it very as obvious as I could without stepping into the street that I wanted to cross. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to count the cars.
Yeah.
And I only counted the westbound cars, the ones that were closest to me. 25 went through, didn't even slow down. I mean, just in the number 2 lane, just a few feet away from me. And it wasn't. Finally, nobody stopped for me. There was a break in traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
And I started walking across, and there was 1 or 2 cars that were going eastbound, and they did stop for me. And I've watched other people try to cross right there. Same experience. They do. It's like, God forbid somebody just assumes that if they step out into the crosswalk, somebody's going to stop because there's going to be a tragedy out there. But no, there's been some discussion about it at a very minimum to do a solar powered flashing yellow light with some additional signage and that sort of thing. The city's response to that is, well, it's going to cost about $10,000 and we don't have it in the budget, and it's like, okay, so it's kind of the same old story. But what we can do as a community is when we see issues like that, because we live here and we drive here and we walk here and we observe this stuff, is to bring it to their attention. And certainly I think that it's the responsibility of the council member, whoever it is, whether it's our current council member, a past council member, or a future council member, it's the responsibility of him or her to really kind of be in touch with kind of the nuances of the community and some of the things that we need. I don't believe that we've seen that for a lot of years, and it's something that is kind of I don't know. For me, it's something that really kind of strikes close to home, and I think it's probably because of my career, and then I was kind of tuned into things in the community with respect to development and traffic and that sort of thing, and I kind of look for that stuff. So I see things and I say, why hasn't somebody done anything about this? Like many of you have. It's like, it's kind of a no-brainer. And so I think that one of my goals is, if I'm to be elected, is that I feel that I can be the voice for the community, and I don't think that we've had that for a long time. And
Amen.
That's what this community needs.
Yeah.
So really quick, Mars.
What action is going to happen tonight about a watch, community watch?
Well, I think tonight, really what we were talking about is with respect to the neighborhood watch meeting that Bo and Linda organized, is that we had, it was kind of short notice, and I was surprised that we actually had Corporal from Pomona PD here. That was because we called it on short notice. So it was nice that he was able to come here, answer some questions, and give a short presentation. Certainly Bo has, again, plenty of experience with Santa Ana PD, and share his knowledge and answer some of the questions. I think that if you live in neighborhoods where you want to try to set up a formal neighborhood watch organization, that the police department is happy to work with you on that. And I know we can give you a contact name and number for the person to contact there. I know that I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of the Quiet Hills neighborhood watch meetings just above the creek area, and the contact for the southwest area of the city here is Natalie Diaz, who works for the police department. And I've got her number, and I think she's been really helpful and cooperative in being a good contact and setting up your meetings.
Oh, she does everything, and it's very, very helpful to anyone that wants to get one off the ground.
So I think the answer, Mars, to your question is that if you want to set one up in your neighborhood, I'm happy to give you her number, and then if you want to make contact with her, she can give you some suggestions with respect to setting something up and kind of getting something off the ground for your neighborhood.
She'll even help facilitate with signage on the streets.
Yes, she will.
The neighborhood watch signs and put it, and the neighborhood watch can be as small as little cul-de-sac of 15 homes, or it can be a larger section. It depends on how you organize up your group.
And sometimes a smaller group sometimes works better.
Yep.
Just
A little bit easier to coordinate.
a couple things to address that, I would think, is everybody here on Nextdoor?
Yeah.
Everybody is. Okay, and then what are we gonna do with the sign-in list? Are we gonna distribute that out to everybody?
That's a good question.
I mean, if you want to keep in contact, if this is our neighborhood and we're supposed to call each other, I'm just looking for action items like stated.
I'm one of the leads, one of the few leads that actually are on Nextdoor here in Phillips Ranch. You can start your own group within Nextdoor. So let's say your Neighborhood Watch Los Feliz. You can start up that group and start adding people and getting in there where you can have a conversation. You can make that a private group or you can make it a public group. It's up to you, but that's how you can actually use Nextdoor to kind of segregate off into these little community neighborhood watches. And then what I would suggest is that those groups, at least maybe once a year, kind of coordinate a bigger let's all talk and get together about our common problems in our certain areas.
I missed out on the question, but if I
We
was...
were just looking for action items to leave here tonight. So one, I just asked if everyone is on Nextdoor, yes or no, and then second is, are we distributing this list of names?
That list, that list right here, and I hope everybody, you don't have to, but I hope you at least give me your name. Honestly, it gives me an idea, and Eric, for the next one, to see how much food we need. How much
I didn't write down what I want to eat. We don't put that on.
But in addition to that, in addition to that, honestly,
Fresh fish.
in addition to that, it also gives me, like, if there's somebody on Los Feliz here, okay, that I don't have their phone number.